Greetings, students. It's your favorite teacher, Miss Davis. And in today's lesson, we are going to review how to add and subtract mixed numbers with unlike denominators. Let's start with our vocabulary. First thing we need to know for today's lesson is what a mixed number is. A mixed number is simply a whole number plus a fraction. I repeat, a mixed number is simply a whole number plus a fraction. We also need to know what an improper fraction is. It simply means that the numerator, which is the top number, will be bigger than the denominator, which is the bottom number. So an improper fraction has a large numerator and a small denominator. Let's get into the lesson. We're going to start with our steps. In order to add and subtract mixed numbers, we want to follow 5 steps. My first step is going to be, I'm going to add my whole numbers first. Once I get rid of my whole numbers, I'm going to find the LCD, which we learned yesterday was the least common denominator. Then we're going to make equivalent fractions. We're going to work, and we're going to check to simplify using 2, 3, 5, and 7. So, if I start with the problem, 1 1/4 plus 3 1/3. Notice I have a mixed number plus a mixed number. My steps tell me to add the whole numbers first. Well, my whole numbers is the 1 and the 3. And I know that 1 plus 3 is 4. Now I've taken the whole numbers out of the problem. All that's left to work are my fractions. 1/4 plus 1/3. In our previous lesson, we went over the steps to add fractions that do not have the same denominator. Because our denominators are different, we cannot just work them. We have to make them have the same denominator. So I'm going to write my multiples for 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. And then some multiples for 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And I see that they share 12. So my LCD will be 12. Moving on to step 3. I need to make equivalent fractions, which means I ask myself, what did I do to 4 to get to 12? Well, I know 4 times 3 is 12, and whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So my numerator will be 3. Now I have the equivalent fraction 3/12. My next question is, what do I do to 3 to get to 12? Well, I know 3 times 4 is 12, and whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So my numerator will be 4. Now I'm ready to work because they have the same denominators. And I know that 3/12 plus 4/12 gives us 7/12. Remember, we never add or subtract denominators. So I need to put my fraction with my whole number, but I'm not done. I want to check to simplify. Looking at my 7/12, I ask my questions. When I skip count by 2, do I say 7? No. When I skip count by 3, do I say 7? No. When I skip count by 5, do I say 7? No. When I skip count by 7, do I say 7? Yes, but do I say 12? No. So that means my final answer in simplest form is 4 7/12. Let's try another. Notice my steps did not change. Once I added a mixed number in there, I just added one extra step from the previous lesson. The only thing different is I added a whole number. Let's start with 2 2/5 plus 5 1/3. Starting with my step 1, it told me to add my whole numbers. Well, 2 plus 5 is 7. Now I have 2/5 plus 1/3. Step 2 tells me to find the LCD. Well, I need to start thinking about the multiples, starting with 5. I've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. my multiples for 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So I see that my LCD will be 15. So I'm going to change my denominators to 15. Moving on to step 3, I'm going to make equivalent fractions, which means I ask myself, what did I do to 5 to get to 15? Well, I know 5 times 3 is 15, and whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top, which gives us a numerator of 6. I ask myself, what did I do to 3 to get to 15? I know that's times 5, and whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top, which gives us a numerator of 5. Now I add 6 fifteenths plus 5 fifteenths gives us 11 fifteenths. I need to put it back with my whole number. And I'm going to finish it by checking to simplify. So I start with my questions. When I skip count by 2, do I say 11? No. When I skip count by 3, do I say 11? No. When I skip count by 5, do I say 11? No. When I skip count by 7, do I say 11? No. So I cannot simplify, which makes my simplest form answer 7 and 11 fifteenths. Now let's try a subtraction problem. My steps do not change. The only thing that's different is instead of adding my whole number in fractions, I'm going to subtract my whole number in fractions. So let's start with 9 2/3 minus 4 1/2. Still following my steps. This time I'm going to subtract my whole numbers. 9 minus 4 gives me 5. So that leaves the fractions 2/3 minus 1/2. Notice they still do not have the same denominator. So step 2 tells me to find the least common denominator. So I write my multiples for 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Write some multiples for 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I see my LCD is 6. 6 is now my common denominator. Notice, I only wrote 6 one time because 6 is going to be the bottom of both of my new fractions, so I really don't have to write it 2 times. So I'm just going to write it 1 time. I still follow my next step, make equivalent fractions. I ask myself, what did I do to 3 to get to 6? Well, I know that's times 2, and whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So our numerator will be 4. I ask myself, what did I do to 2 to get to 6? That's times 3. And whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. So our numerator will be 3. So now I have 4 6 minus 3 6 equals 1 6. Put it with my whole number. I'm not going to check to simplify because I have a unit fraction. Remember, a unit fraction is a fraction with a numerator of 1. I cannot make 1 any smaller. That's as small as it gets. So 5 1/6 has to be my final answer. Okay. Let's try a subtraction problem where we have to regroup. So let's try 8 1/5 minus 2 1/2. Starting with my steps, I'm going to subtract my whole numbers. 8 minus 2 gives me 6. So now we have 1/5 minus 1/2. I need a least common denominator, so I write some multiples for 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And some multiples for 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So I know that my LCD is going to be 10. Oh, let's separate. So step 3, make equivalent fractions. I asked myself, what did I do to 5 to get to 10? Well, I know that's 5 times 2. And whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top, which gives us a numerator of 1. Oh, Lord. Gives us a numerator of 2. 1 times 2 is 2. I asked myself, what did I do to 2 to get to 10? That's times 5. And whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. And 1 times 5 is 5. What do I do now? Because if I only have 2 tenths, I cannot take away 5 tenths. So I have to borrow or regroup. Remember, when we regroup, a number has to go down so that another number can go up. Well, the only number left for me to take down is this whole number that I have over in my answer. So that needs to go down 1 so that my numerator can go up. And the reason it went up, 12. If I take away 1 whole, and I want that 1 whole to look like my fraction, it's got to match my denominator of 10. 10 over 10 is my 1 whole that I took away. So the 1 that I took from 6, I wrote it as 10 over 10, because that's 1 whole. Well, if I already had 2 tenths, that means that 10 tenths plus 2 tenths equals 12 tenths. So that's how I got 12 tenths. Let me repeat that. I made my 6 go down to a 5. So the 1 I took away, I wrote it as the fraction 10 tenths. There's my 1 whole. Well, I already had 2 tenths. So when I added 10 tenths plus 2 tenths, that left me with 12 tenths. Now I can subtract because 12 is bigger than 5. So 12 tenths minus 5 tenths gives us 7 tenths. So I write that with my whole number. Now I'm going to check to simplify. When I skip count by 2, I do not say 7. When I skip count by 3, I do not say 7. When I skip count by 5, I do not say 7. When I skip count by 7, I do say 7, but I do not say 10. So my final answer is 5 and 7 tenths. Let's try one more where we have to regroup. So let's say we have 12 and 1/4. And I want to subtract 8 and 1/2. Starting with my whole numbers. 12 minus 8 is 4, which leaves my fractions 1/4 minus 1/2. We're looking for an LCD, so I write multiples. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Notice they share more than one number, but that L in LCD stands for least. So the least common is 4. So my denominator will be 4. Oops, don't want that. My denominators will be 4. Now I'm making equivalent fractions. What did I do to 4 to get to 4? Well, it stayed the same, so it had to be times 1. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top, which gives me a numerator of 1. What did I do to 2 to get to 4? Times 2. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top, which gives me a numerator of 2. There's that issue again. 1 is too small for me to subtract 2. So I have to borrow. Remember, one number has to go down so that this numerator can go up. So the only thing I can take from is this 4. Okay? So that 4 has to go down 1. And the 1 I took away, I'm going to write it as 4 fourths, because that equals 1 whole. And I make my whole by using my denominator. I already have 1/4. So the 1/2 that I took away and put with my 1/4 gives me 5/4. Now I can subtract. 5/4 minus 2/4 gives us 3/4. Write it with my whole number. And I check to simplify. When I skip count by 2, do I say 3? Nope. When I skip count by 3, do I say 3? Yes. But do I say 4? No. 5 and 7 are too big. They're bigger than 3. So my simplest form is 3 3/4. That wraps up our lesson for today. As always, I have an exit ticket for you to complete. You can take this time to write your problems down. Remember, we reviewed how to add and subtract mixed numbers. And until next time, have a great week.